Welcome everybody back to the Everyday A&P YouTube channel. We're going to start off this biology playlist by talking about the cell theory, and then we will progressively get into the different components of the cell and onwards. So, to begin with the base of biology, we come to the cell theory. Now, what is this cell theory? So, there's a lot of research being done in the early to mid 1600s, and that kind of led on and continued up until the mid 19th century, where the basic composition of life was being studied. How did these various species come to be? How did these different organisms come to be? And scientists back in the time developed three different proponents that kind of explain three different basic tenets of cell theory. So the first tenet that we're going to look at, right, is going to be that all living organisms are composed of one or more cells. You need to have at least one cell if you want to be considered a living organism. And thankfully, we all have billions, if not trillions, of cells that we will, that are differentiated into different types of cells that function and, have various different functions that keep us living and happy. So that's the first component. The second component, as you can see right there, is the cell is the most basic unit of life. You won't find anything smaller than the cell. It is the basic unit of life, and that is the building block that basically has the information, that has all the power to generate more for the living organism, for the living species. So that's the second tenet that we're going to cover. And the third one, right, is that all cells come from pre-existing cells. So there was a point in time where people thought that certain species just came out of nowhere, but that was, of course, debunked by these different research studies done by these amazing scientists, and we were able to see that cells come from pre-existing cells, and we're going to cover that when we talk about mitosis and meiosis later on when we talk about the reproductive system. But for now, the start that we're gonna talk about is these three proponents, and there is a fourth one that has been loosely added for the modern version of cell theory, and that is that genetic information is encoded by DNA. We know that RNA is also there, and it's transmitted from cell to cell. So again, this is something that we will also be covering when we talk about mitosis and meiosis. So to further to expand on this topic, we have Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke he held the first experiment that identified evidence of cells, and this was basically constructed under a simple compound microscope that he used, and it examined a cork that was composed of dead tissue from the bark of trees. And what he found was he was able to observe these honeycomb-shaped lattice structures, and he dubbed the component and he called them cells. And how he fell upon the word cells was that it reminded him of rooms, otherwise known as cells, in the monasteries that he used to live in. So that's where we get the word cells from. They look like, apparently, those monasteries back in the day. So that is the simple introduction of cell theory and what it entails, right? We covered that all living organisms are composed of one or more cells. The cell is the most basic unit of life, and we will build on top of this in the videos that will come in the future, and that all cells come from pre-existing cells. So we know that we need some type of cell in order to create another generation of cells. So that's when we will talk about mitosis, meiosis, and other types of cell differentiation in the future. And then with modern version of cell theory, we also know that genetic information is entailed, and it is encoded by DNA, which is then transmitted from cell to cell. So In short, this is a brief introduction of the cell theory and how it came to be and what's entailed within it. In the future videos, we're going to go into and dive deeper into the types of cells and the different functions and different organelles that are found within the cell, and how those different functions actually help the overall organism survive. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was enough to help clarify any misunderstanding, or even just to learn something out of it. And like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.